Okay, hello, happy Monday. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning, Jade. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are we today?
Good, good.
Good.
I'm excited for this topic today
I
that
think
we're going to
it's
dive into.
truly Ted, this one. I do feel like,
I guess that's why I say I'm excited.
yeah. So I tipped our hat last week that today we're going to be bringing up, it's a heavy one, it's a lot. The topic of tragedy and almost like when things go wrong for you, what happens afterwards. So Ted, we ended off with your mantra. Do you want to lead them in and tell them what it means? And maybe let's state it again in case anybody didn't see
Yeah,
that.
it's the whole foundation of my business. It's on my business card, which I don't have right in front of me, but it says helping people and companies grow before tragedy. And the why behind that is, as people have heard me say, I lost my dad. It'll be 25 years ago on Father's Day this year. But anybody that's heard me talk about the experience, I say it's the worst thing that ever happened to me, ... The absolute best thing that ever happened to me. Like, I literally do not think I'd be the man or do the work that I did had I not experienced that level of tragedy at a young age. And so I've dedicated my life to, for lack of better terms, pushing people off the proverbial cliff, because we all know that when we have tragedy happen and there's many forms of tragedy, right? Many layers of tragedy. You could lose a job, it's tragic. There's tragedy going on in the world right now. What seems like left, right, and center. And so, but in those moments, whether you turn on the TV and you see what's happening in Ukraine, or you hear about somebody, even somebody not related to you or even distant from you, that died of COVID or whatever it may be, you can't tell me you don't stop for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think and evaluate your life a little bit deeper. You think about, am I in the right job? The Great Resignation. If you go start reading about the Great Resignation, part of it is because people slowed down and they were reevaluating your life in the face of worldwide tragedy with COVID. And so I just think this idea that slowing down and really understanding the role that tragedy can play in your life. And so you hear the stories of it, and I am one of them, that my father's death propelled me into a deeper level of fulfillment, a deeper level of prosperity, quite frankly, and conviction. So I'll summarize it by saying it this way: when people come across tragedy, whether it be losing a job or a loved one or something, there's so many ways tragedy shows up in people's lives. My question to people always is, almost immediately, what are you going to do with it? Like, you got to start thinking about, so you lose a loved one, how are you really going to honor that person? Right? You lost a job. Okay. Let's settle into the feeling. Like, let's dismiss it, because I'm not somebody that says, hey, just barrel through it. Part of the thing I say about tragedy is that you have to really immerse yourself in the true feelings of it and grieve. I don't want to go into the deep end here, but I feel like I wasted 2.5, 3 years of my life after I lost my dad because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't even think what to do with it other than to plow through it in very harmful ways to myself, drinking or running around or whatever it may have been. And so this idea that tragedy can take you to a different level. Tragedy can, if you do something with it. And so the word that I put next to it is intention. But without intention and without really slowing down to figure out how the tragedy plays a role in your life, you'll miss it. And all too often, we hear stories about it all the time. And this is where it goes real deep for me. And part of my own vision and mission in my work is that, how often do you talk to people that tragedy damn near stopped them in their tracks? And they became addicted, or they completely lost their vision of building a career or being a writer or a solopreneur because something tragic on some level happened in their pursuit of. And they went, I'm done, versus settling into it. So this is an important one for me. It's near and dear to my heart because I think it's life. We're all going to experience tragedy.
Exactly. And I would say almost more than it's what we all have in common, right? Because I feel like you can't really measure pain, and we've all felt pain and been through tragedy. So it's almost like our common denominator that we're all feeling. There's many pleasurable life experiences, positive life experiences that we don't all feel to the same degree. But this pain is really a common connector that I think we all have. And I will tell you, Ted, that as soon as you posed this question to me, I was like, boom, boom, boom. I felt them all, and I saw them all, and I can feel like I saw the way that I grew after them. And it was intentional for sure. And I have a mentor recently talked to me about this, and I was saying, like oftentimes our tendency is to like run from this, or just to want it to pass or to change, or, like, and she was talking about how there's a reason for it. If you think about a seed in the ground, okay, and the pressure that the earth puts in it, that's obviously not pleasurable, right? We don't think of pressure as pleasurable, but without that pressure, the seedling cannot grow, right? So if you think about this, like when Ted says, what are you doing with it? So the pressure is on, right? When this thing has happened to you, how are you using that then to grow,
Yeah. It's funny you say the plant, because my line that support, I always say grass doesn't grow unless it's rained upon.
Yeah.
But sometimes it cripples us.
And I do think that there's space for that too. I think you can let it, you can let it cripple, you can let it hurt, you can feel it and all that. But it's like, how long are you going to live and be in that space versus honor the thing that happened to you, or want to move away from the thing that happened to you in order to grow from it, right? Like, especially when I think about the death part, right? Like, if you want to honor that person, like what have you changed in your life, in order to do that and reflect that and let them live on through you in that positive way. And like,
the reason I asked that question, that what are you going to do, it requires action. Pay attention to the depth of the question that I ask people. In the face of tragedy, what are you going to do with it? Yeah. Obviously, there's follow-up conversation behind that, and more questions that I would follow with that. But I just want to pause there and say, I want everybody to recognize this on this Monday, that what are you going to do with it? It requires not just reflection, it requires action and intention. But you got to go figure out literally what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, 100%.
People have done amazing things in life. You always hear the stories. People have done amazing things in life in the face of adversity and tragedy. And then you have another big pocket of the population that their lives have unwound in unfortunate and very sad ways because of tragedy. And all too often, some of them are not controlled. And I want to make that crystal clear that I'm not naive to that. Having said that, some of this not simply, but some of this comes down to choice.
Yeah.
Which is big.
So I think the easiest way to reflect or to help somebody with this today would be to look at your most recent, right? Like, what is most recently the difficult thing that has happened to you in life? And how have you used it as a springboard, as inspiration, as some means of growth? Like Ted said, what did you do with it? And if you haven't done anything with it, what can you do with it now in order to inspire, to grow, to change, and turn it into that positive, right? Remember our yin and yang, like take the negative, the tragedy, and turn it into this positive and opportunity for growth.
I would take what you said and I'd make it more specific to the past 2 years, because this is a real conversation with so many people, meaning the pandemic and all the ramifications of. So tragedy could be that I haven't been around people. Tragedy could be like we took a financial hit. Tragedy could be like my business folded and I have no job now. Tragedy could be you lost people. There's all these things that have happened. And what I have found, Jade, is that some people in the moment have pivoted for 1 or 2 months, but then they did not make life change. Mm-hmm. So they did things in the face of tragedy and pivoted, got more present, went after something in their business or whatever, and then went right back to what was quote unquote normal. Okay. So I like what you're saying, this idea of like, have you examined the thoughts that were happening and did you do anything? And then the word that I'll layer on here is consistent. Have you done it consistently enough and long enough to actually create life change versus this short-term change that gave you a lift and got you through the tragedy versus my life is different. I am different. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Okay, what a good note to end on. I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say about this. And I know that we have very inspirational people on the other side of the screen to share your stories with us too, of how you turn your tragedy into transformation in your life. And I look forward to seeing those. So thank you, Ted. I'll see you next week.
See ya. Take care, Jay.